What you see on your screens is Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's landed in Zagreb for his visit to Croatia. That's the next big focus of the Prime Minister's three-nation tour. After Cyprus and the G7 in Canada, the Prime Minister now has landed in Zagreb. Let's talk about the significance that this visit carries. Do remember, this is the Prime Minister sidelining the US President Donald Trump's invite to Washington, D.C. When they had that quick chat, 35-minute phone call when he was attending the G7 summit in Canada. He is now in Croatia. The Prime Minister's in Croatia, marking the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the Central and Southeast European nation. Like I said, it comes with a lot of significance. Going across to Siddhant Mishra, who joins us with more details. Siddhant, we see the Prime Minister being greeted by one and all top officials lined up there to welcome the Prime Minister. What do we expect the next few minutes?
Well, yes, that's right. So Prime Minister has reached Croatia. In fact, he will be welcomed. He will be received by the Prime Minister of Croatia, Andrej Plenković, and this is a special gesture that the Prime Minister of Croatia has shown to go to the airport to receive Prime Minister Modi. Now, this is the first visit of Indian Prime Minister to Croatia. In fact, this visit also becomes significant because this morning only we got to know that Prime Minister Modi denied accepting the invite of President Trump to visit Washington for a brief visit, and decided to continue with his prior commitment of a visit to Croatia. And now Prime Minister has reached Croatia. In fact, this will be the first ever visit of an Indian Prime Minister. In fact, before this, former Prime Minister Ramnath Kovind undertook a state visit to Croatia in March 2019. In fact, during which he was conferred with the Croatia's highest honor. Prime Minister Modi briefly interacted with the Prime Minister of Croatia at COP26 summit in 2021. And in September 2021, in fact, EM S. Jaishankar paid the first ever official visit to Croatia. First foreign ministerial level visit also happened between the two countries in 2021. So this relationship is new, and in fact, as I said, that's the first visit of Indian Prime Minister to Croatia. India and Croatia have close cooperation in trade, investment, defense, agriculture sectors, amongst others, and also cooperate in international fora, vibrant cultural exchanges, and close people-to-people ties. In fact, many Croatian companies are working in India. In fact, last time when former President Ramnath Kovind went to Croatia for a state visit, he was accompanied by a 35-member business delegation, and they held a business roundtable at that point in time. So there is close people-to-people ties. In fact, there is large number of Indian diaspora also living in Croatia. There were approximately 17,000 Indians residing in Croatia by December last year. Many of the Indian workers are working on a short-term, medium-term contracts in the country. 90% of the people currently residing are those who form a part of the mobile population staying in Croatia. First ever visit by Indian Prime Minister to Croatia. This will help to foster stronger political and economic collaboration with Croatia. It provides a crucial opportunity to expand bilateral cooperation in various sectors, including trade, innovation, defense, ports, shipping, science, tech, cultural exchange, and workforce mobility. So, as I said, recently both countries have started building on the relationship. The first foreign ministerial meeting took place in 2021. Now, the first prime ministerial visit is happening. In fact, Prime Minister Modi met Croatian Prime Minister on the sidelines of COP26 in 2021, but that was a very brief interaction between the two leaders. So, as I said, that both countries are building on this relationship, and perhaps this visit will serve as a foundation for both countries to strengthen ties in defense, port, shipping, science, and tech. While going to Canada, Prime Minister visited Cyprus. Perhaps, as we had for the first time reported that how Indian government is mulling over options for for Prime Minister's for the refueling of the Prime Minister's plane, and there were two options which were selected. One, while going to Canada, it was Cyprus, and while returning, it's Croatia. Also, given Croatia's strategic location, which perhaps makes it even more significant. And as I said, that this visit will boost ties between the two countries, and will further serve an opportunity for both countries to strengthen bilateral relationship.
Okay, Siddhant, we'll come back to you in just a bit. CNN News 18's Aman Sharma is with us on the broadcast too. Aman, very interesting that here's a nation that the Prime Minister is visiting that's part of both the European Union and NATO as well. Do you find that aspect interesting too? And to further talk about how the equation between the two countries goes much beyond trade and defense. It also is a reflection of the kind of cultural connect that the two nations enjoy, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, Kitsween. Croatia is a very, very important country in that aspect. It may be a small country, but yes, it is strategically very, very important. It's a key member of the European Union, and that all explains the importance of this nation. And the Prime Minister, very importantly, not changing his schedule for Croatia. Even when he was in Canada and got a call from the US President Donald Trump to make a stopover in Canada, Mr. Trump requested Mr. Modi, but Mr. Modi said he could not do that because he had a prior commitment. So that speaks a lot of the importance India gives to Croatia, and also Mr. Modi's firmness when it comes to maintaining such diplomatic relations, that he has not changed at all his Croatia trip. In fact, he has chosen to ignore, in a way, not accept the invite of Donald Trump or the US President. And who does that? No country really declines an invite from the US to visit them. But the Prime Minister has chosen to go ahead with Croatia, and as my colleague Siddhant was explaining, this is the first ever Prime Ministerial visit from India to Croatia. So, it has taken so long for an Indian Prime Minister to go to Croatia. We saw the Prime Minister of Croatia there receive Prime Minister Modi at the airport, and that explains, earlier we had the Prime Minister of Cyprus receiving Mr. Modi when Mr. Modi landed in Cyprus while going to Canada. So that explains the importance that, nations like Cyprus and Croatia attach to India, and the growing, I would say, the diplomatic footprint of India and the growing global stature of India, thanks to the last 11 years of the Modi government, when the Prime Minister has made it sure to visit multiple countries where no Indian Prime Minister had gone earlier. There's a long list of such countries, and Croatia is now getting added to this particular list. As I said, a very important country in the Balkan region, a small country, but its importance has been even more stressed upon by India, with Mr. Modi choosing to, in a way, not go to the US as a stopover, not changing his program at Croatia at all, and land in Croatia as we speak.
Oh yes, so it indeed marks a historic first for India and is much more than a diplomatic milestone. Thank you, Aman and Siddhant, for joining us with all those details. With that, let's shift our focus to another important takeaway of the G7. While the Prime Minister was in Canada, he once again raised the alarm over deep fakes. The Prime Minister highlighted the risk of artificial intelligence. He said, and I quote him here, "Deep fakes are a serious concern. There must be clear watermarks or disclosures on AI-generated content." Speaking at the AI summit in Paris in February, the Prime Minister highlighted the potential risk of artificial intelligence and urged world leaders to democratize the technology and reskill people. The Prime Minister emphasized that technology must be rooted in local ecosystem and should enhance trust and transparency, making them more people-centric to tackle the concerns related to cybersecurity. This also comes amid the explosion in deepfake videos during election season, namely the 2024 general elections as well. Aman Sharma continues to stay on with us. Aman, I spoke of two instances in the past, apart from the G7 address that came in from the Prime Minister, speaking about the dangers that come with these deepfakes. Why does it become so very important in the Indian context, especially given he said all this while he was in Canada?
Well, Kitsween, India is going to host the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit next year. This is an international summit where Mr. Modi, while he was at the G7 in this outreach meeting where he has made this particular address on AI, he invited, in fact, all the nations there to come and participate in the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit, which India will be hosting next year. And, Prime Minister Modi is saying that, yes, artificial intelligence is a big concern, but we have to find a way to make it a tool actually for global good. and how countries can work together to in that direction, that AI becomes a tool for global good, how various countries collaborate their efforts in this regard. And he mentioning particularly that how deep fakes is an essentially very, very big problem, because this can lead to big misunderstandings. To quote the Prime Minister, that deep fakes is a cause of big concern, and he has said this can spread chaos in society. So the Prime Minister Modi for the first time is advocating that there should be watermarking or clear declaration should be made on AI generated content. This is something which is not happening so far, and many world leaders have been a victim of AI manufactured content which creates confusion. So the Prime Minister Modi for the first time advocating that there should be clear watermarking, that this is AI generated content and not real content. The Prime Minister also saying that as AI is becoming a very effective medium to increase efficiency and innovation in every sector, so AI itself is also a very energy intensive sector. The Prime Minister saying that we can make apps like AI powered apps which can help, for example, our farmers, to predict that what weather conditions could be coming up next. He spoke about this app that India also has, which has been working on, the Bhashini app, which India has been working on. So all these things have been mentioned by the Prime Minister at the AI summit, but majorly the Prime Minister saying that the problem of deep fakes needs to be, handled very, very urgently, and the AI Impact Summit next year to be held in India could be looked at by global partners as a forum to find solutions to the growing concerns over AI.
Okay, many thanks, Aman, for joining us with those details. I do want to go across to Supreme Court advocate Khushbu Jain, who joins us on the broadcast as well. Ms. Khushbu Jain, how do you look at this? India has been fighting the AI battle, as have many other nations across the world. It's a warning that's coming in from the Prime Minister. He's once again raising an alarm over the dangers that these deepfakes carry, and we've seen some petitioners here in India also want to take it to the courts. How do you look at that story playing out here in India, and what can India really do to ensure, for instance, the suggestion that's come in from the Prime Minister, for instance, that these AI generated content must see watermarks going forward? Where do you see us stand in this entire movement as of today?
See, there is no denial about the part that, digital disinformation in the form of fake news, morphed pictures, manipulated videos, manipulated voices that are coming in terms of creating a havoc when it comes to elections, when it comes to mistrust in the government, or for that matter, when it comes to common people like you and me, the kind of videos that erupt, or social media influencers, or anybody for that matter. So the way this has come up, it has become a common sight on internet today. It is very difficult for a common person like you and me to look into the videos and understand whether it is a fake video or an AI generated video or a real video. And that creates a problem, because in the absence of any specific law that can deal with, or apart from the law, the regulation and the implementation of the regulation that can deal with this, it becomes difficult, because there are issues that even if, let's say, tomorrow it comes to a conclusion that this was a deep fake, much of a time has already been passed. The people who have watched into might not understand that this was a deep fake, and this creates a lot of hue and cry or mistrust, or it can even take away somebody's image or somebody's the created image, or entire life can be at the stake. And even at the nation's stake, it becomes a difficulty. So it is creating a problem, and this is not just India, but the whole world is realizing that. And that's where I think PM Modi is also talking about, and it was a high time for us to address. India did come up with its own guidelines as to how the AI should develop and what kind of challenges it would face when it comes to safety, security, transparency of that part. But I think the way it has been adopted by people and the way it has been misused is where this challenge is coming up, that before it becomes a real challenge, there should be some regulation that should come up. There should be some technology that should come up, which for public good at real time can detect these kind of videos, and a solution can come up, or a immediate action can be taken in a timely manner. And it cannot be done at the national level or a local level. It has to be done at a international level, because when we're talking about the place which is called as internet, there is nothing called as borders over there. So when it comes to crime, I think when it comes to fake news, when it comes to misinformation, disinformation, when it comes to morphed videos or voices which are being manipulated, I think the crimes, or whether they are legal or illegal, is already settled in almost all the countries. We have laws in India as well. The new laws which have come up, the BNS also recognizes all these as crime. The IT Act also recognizes this as a crime. But when it comes to implementation, when it comes to what guidelines or mandatory law should be there, when it comes to companies who are, who are providing these tools and technologies, is the one we should have, or the focus that should come up. And I think that's where PM Modi was talking about, that there should be a mandatory watermarking, because that can be one of the...
Do you think that's a good suggestion, Ms. Khushbu? Because that's going to clearly identify deepfake from real, fake content from real content, and that's really going to help the users or the viewers, as we normally put it out. Because while India has been speaking of all these issues that we continue to face because of the AI technology, at the Paris summit, the Prime Minister very interestingly laid emphasis on how AI must be our strength and not our weakness. Do you think this perhaps is one of the excellent suggestions we must look at going forward?
Absolutely, and I have it's one of the best suggestions, and I think EU Act already spoke about the same, and PM Modi has already been talking about watermarking from very long, and this is a good suggestion, but this is not the only solution. This is one of the solutions, because with this there has to be an implementation, because even watermarking can be removed by those nefarious actors who want to actually put across some video and do it. So I think apart from watermarking, there should be mandatory laws when it comes to all these companies who are providing these tools and technologies on internet, that what they have to do, so that tomorrow if something like that comes out, it can become very clear that from which tool or app it has been created or generated, and then who is the one who has created can come up. Because we are just talking about not detection, but we are also talking about that how the legal system will evolve with it, because we actually want the criminals who are using such, or who are playing with the law, should be put behind the bars, and for that we need entire systems to be so watertight that one can investigate and reach the real criminal with this.
Yes,
and that's
we must in fact aspire, on a lighter note, aspire to get to a point wherein the right AI is the only AI, and that's what one's hoping for. So fingers crossed for that. Ms. Jain, thank you so much for taking out your time this evening. Shifting our focus now from what the Prime Minister said in Canada to the phone call he made to US President Donald Trump, a 35-minute phone call, their first direct conversation since the Pahalgam attack. During this phone call, the Prime Minister made it amply clear to President Donald Trump that India carried out precise strikes on terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, but most importantly conveyed that India is not going to take this lying low. India will continue to strongly retaliate to any aggression from Pakistan's end. Further, most importantly, clarified that no discussion on US trade deals or US mediation took place at the time of Operation Sindoor, that the ceasefire was directly coordinated between the military side of India and Pakistan, and India has also rejected any form of mediation on the issue with full political consensus. So that's what's been spoken of by the Prime Minister. It's been confirmed by Foreign Secretary Mr. Vikram Misri. Donald Trump, on the other hand, while this conversation was on, also extended an invite to Prime Minister Modi to visit US. But while citing this conversation, politics here back home continues to escalate. The Congress has stressed on the need for an all-party meeting once again, and the BJP has hit back to the same, has asked the Congress about the fact, or rather has asked the Congress why it continues to parrot Pakistan the way it does. First up, the confirmation that came in from Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri on this 35-minute phone call. Listen in.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को स्पष्ट रूप से कहा कि इस पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान कभी भी किसी भी स्तर पर भारत अमेरिका ट्रेड डील या अमेरिका द्वारा भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच मध्यस्थता जैसे विषयों पर बात नहीं हुई थी। सैन्य कार्रवाई रोकने की बात सीधे भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच दोनों सेनाओं की एग्जिस्टिंग चैनल्स के माध्यम से हुई थी और पाकिस्तान के ही आग्रह पर हुई थी। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने जोर देकर कहा कि भारत ने न तो कभी मध्यस्थता स्वीकार की थी, न करता है और न ही कभी करेगा। इस विषय पर भारत में पूर्ण रूप से राजनीतिक एकमत है। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने प्रधानमंत्री मोदी से पूछा कि क्या वे कनाडा से वापसी में अमेरिका रुक कर जा सकते हैं। पूर्व निर्धारित कार्यक्रमों के कारण प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने अपनी असमर्थता व्यक्त की। क्वाड की अगली बैठक के लिए प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को भारत यात्रा का निमंत्रण दिया। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने निमंत्रण स्वीकार करते हुए कहा कि वे भारत आने के लिए उत्सुक हैं।
All right, let's once again establish this entire phone conversation that took place. Like I said, it was a 35-minute phone call, not a face-to-face phone call. The Prime Minister dialed US President as the US President had cut short his visit. But here's how the Prime Minister fact-checked President Donald Trump. He spoke very clearly of how no discussions on trade took place while Operation Sindoor was on. There was no sort of pressure tactic which was employed by US to which India gave in, as was claimed by many in US. No role of US in India-Pakistan ceasefire. Another big claim that was made by the Prime Minister during this conversation with President Trump. He confirmed that India halted strikes on Pakistan only after Pakistan came begging for truce. India doesn't and will not allow a mediator, something that the Prime Minister said very clearly. Once again conveyed this position formally taken by India to US President Donald Trump. Going across to Siddhant Mishra, who joins us with more details. Siddhant, what we see on our screens are some of the excerpts of the message that was conveyed by the Prime Minister to US President Donald Trump. But why it becomes extremely significant is because the Prime Minister at this point in time made it a point to not hold on to this any longer, to not let it be a wait and watch. Given US President Donald Trump cut short his visit, the Prime Minister conveyed this message loud and clear. How has this been perceived by US, and have we heard from the US respond to the Foreign Secretary's repetition of the Prime Minister's message?
Well, that's right. In fact, the response from US government is still awaited. This should also be clarified for the viewers that there is no readout that has come from the US government yet after the telephonic conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. Having said that, Foreign Secretary, made India's position very clear in a televised message. Perhaps he also spoke about what conversation the two leaders had, and in fact, he said that Prime Minister Modi clarified and perhaps in clear terms told President Trump that there was no mediation which happened. No mediation is happening, and no mediation will ever happen in future. So, there were a lot of chatter around, especially in terms of commentary from the Trump administration that US will get to right to the table for the discussion for resolving the Kashmir dispute, etc., etc. So it has again been made clear to the United States at the highest level, from Prime Minister to President Trump, that there is going to be no mediation by the third party. Also, Prime Minister Modi spoke about the conversation which actually happened between Indian leadership and the American leadership at the time of Operation Sindoor. So between the first time President Trump and Prime Minister Modi spoke was right after Pahalgam attack. After which, during Operation Sindoor, Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary Rubio spoke to Indian leadership. So Prime Minister told President Trump about the conversation they had, and he said that nowhere ever trade was discussed in those conversations. In fact, EM.S. Jaishankar told Secretary Rubio very clearly that if Pakistan wants India to stop firing, then for that Pakistan needs to speak to India directly. And perhaps that exactly happened on 10th of May when Indian armed forces compelled Pakistan to go down on their knees and to call up the Indian DGMO for a ceasefire, and then only ceasefire was attained. So this position of Indian government was explained to President Trump. In fact, as per the Foreign Secretary, President Trump understood India's position. He immediately invited Prime Minister Modi to visit Washington. Prime Minister Modi denied accepting that invitation because he already had prior commitment in Croatia. But he extended an invite to President Trump to come visit India in later this year for the Quad Summit. So that all the unnecessary chatter which we have been listening from last 1 month or even more than that about how the ceasefire was attained, US got it mediated. Opposition parties here in India were asking the government that why Prime Minister is not speaking on the issue, why Prime Minister is not picking up the phone and calling President Trump and explaining the India's position, etc., etc. So now it has been done. All India was looking for, Christine, right time. And that right time was the right moment, the right platform was G7 in Canada. So India wanted to explain it to Trump at G7. Since he was not there physically, he cut short his visit and went to Washington. Prime Minister decided to speak to him over phone and explain it to him. And now it has been done. And India has explained its position to United States.
No question of mediation is what we've heard the Prime Minister convey to President Donald Trump. But back home here in India, nothing much has changed politically speaking. We heard Congress leaders once again say that the Prime Minister must call an all-party meeting upon his return to brief the leaders on the conversation he had with US President Donald Trump. Listen in.
वो जानकारी हमें मिली है, पर मेरा एक ही सवाल है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का बयान बिल्कुल अलग है। वो अलग है, ठीक है, अलग अलग देश अलग अलग बयान दे सकते हैं, पर हमारे प्रधानमंत्री विपक्ष के नेताओं से बातचीत से क्यों भाग रहे हैं? क्यों सर्वदलीय बैठक नहीं बुलाते? पार्लियामेंट की मांग तो हम कर रहे हैं, उन्होंने तो टाल दिया है 21 जुलाई तक, पर सर्वदलीय बैठक बुलाने में कितना देर लगता है? एक दिन का नोटिस चाहिए बस, कल बुलाइए, परसों बुलाइए, और यही कहिए कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को मैंने ये जवाब दिया है।
कांग्रेस पार्टी फेक न्यूज की फैक्ट्री है, झूठ की जननी है, और उसके तमाम झूठों का जो मोदी विरोध में उतरते उतरते भारत विरोधी झूठ थे, पाकिस्तान परस्ती वाले झूठ थे, उनका आज पर्दाफाश हो चुका है, वो ध्वस्त हो चुके हैं। कांग्रेस लगातार कह रही थी कि ट्रंप ने मध्यस्थता की, ट्रंप ने सीजफायर करवाया। आज प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने साफ साफ डोनाल्ड ट्रंप जी से कह दिया कि कोई मध्यस्थता, कोई इंटरवेंशन, कोई हस्तक्षेप किसी तीसरे देश ने नहीं किया। जो कांग्रेस कहती है ना कि हमने सरेंडर कर दिया, अभी भी ऑपरेशन सिंदूर जारी है। कांग्रेस पार्टी आज INC नहीं बल्कि PNC, पाकिस्तानी नेशनल कांग्रेस की तरह बोल रही है, और राहुल गांधी LOP, लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन नहीं, लीडर ऑफ पाकिस्तानी प्रोपेगेंडा की तरह बोलते हैं। उनको देश से माफी मांगनी चाहिए।
For now, it's time for us to head into a very short break. News and updates continue when we return. Stay tuned to CNN News 18.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Siddhant, that is the big statement that's coming in from the Foreign Secretary. Important aspects that have been underlined. Vikram Misri has gone on to put it on record that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did take up the US intervention as far as the conversation between India and Pakistan is concerned. He reiterated how India doesn't accept any third-party involvement when it is about their relationship between India and Pakistan and dealing with whatever is happening between the two countries. And that is the highlight from this conversation. Just tell us more.
Well, that's right. In fact, this is the first time Prime Minister Modi has spoken to President Trump after Operation Sindoor. In fact, as Foreign Secretary rightly pointed out, that the first conversation the last conversation happened between the two leaders only after a Pahalgam terror attack. And in fact, this is the first conversation to Prime Minister Modi, perhaps explained to President Trump the context under which India targeted terror camps in POJK and Pakistan. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also told President Trump and thanked him for extending support to India right after the Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, this is what Foreign Secretary said, that when Vice President Vance called Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor, and in fact Vice President Vance told Prime Minister Modi that Pakistan is planning a big attack on India, to which Prime Minister Modi replied to Vice President Vance that if Pakistan will do a big attack, then we will also retaliate in a powerful way. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi explained this to President Trump, that then India gave a powerful reply to Pakistan on the intervening night of 9th and 10th of May. PM Modi told President Trump very clearly, in all this, never ever trade was discussed. PM Modi also told President Trump, India had never accepted mediation, India will never accept mediation. In fact, President Trump understood Prime Minister Modi's viewpoint. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also extended invitation to President Trump to visit India for the Quad summit later this year, which President Trump has accepted. In fact, President Trump invited Prime Minister Modi to visit United States. In fact, President Trump said this to Prime Minister Modi, that if he could come to United States for a brief visit so that both leaders can sit and talk before returning to India, to which Prime Minister Modi told President Trump that since he already has scheduled a program in Croatia, he is going to United States, but both leaders will definitely look for an opportunity to meet as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
So,
35 minutes big, conversation. One more thing that has been said by Vikram Misri and Sanjay, I'd like your inputs on this, that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was the one who in fact spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi post the Pahalgam attack. He mentioned of some sort of an imminent attack by Pakistan, to which Prime Minister Modi had very, very clearly said that India's response is going to be lethal. That also is rather significant, Sanjay.
Yes, a quick thought before we come to that. I think it's quite significant the very fact that this call was made, and we are not done with the G7 yet.
Yes.
There was to have been a bilateral between Trump and Modi. That was missed for circumstantial reasons. President Trump left. But before the G7 is done, the White House made it sure that there would be a conversation. Typically, conversations and meetings here at the G7 have been slotted 35 minutes, a lot of them. And this call we just heard from the Foreign Secretary was 35 minutes. So that keenness from the US, keenness from Trump, that yes, we must have this call with Modi. The second thing that's quite remarkable, also is almost a throwaway remark that Trump appears to have made, is if Modi has not left Canada, which is next door to where the president is, if he can come to the US. Now that is quite an unusual expression of keenness and a quite unusual invitation that's very spontaneous. But I think it's quite telling. It all adds up to a great keenness to hear from Modi and to speak with him. So once that, of course, is established, then through the course of the call we do hear now about Vance. So there was an attempt at, call it mediation, call it an attempt to reach a ceasefire, call it an attempt to prevent escalation. That came from the Vice President and not from Trump himself. Is the team really at the top of the US government? But that does make things clear, because this area has been a bit clouded for a while now. Whether it is President Trump who intervened to end the hostilities, or whether it was directly done, we have a very clear statement now from the government that it was between Pakistan and India at the military level that this was agreed. Of course, with political backing, it was not President Trump himself, but it was the Vice President who intervened in some way, in some capacity, not exactly as thought.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Siddhant, that is the big statement that's coming in from the Foreign Secretary. Important aspects that have been underlined. Vikram Misri has gone on to put it on record that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did take up the US intervention as far as the conversation between India and Pakistan is concerned. He reiterated how India doesn't accept any third-party involvement when it is about their relationship between India and Pakistan and dealing with whatever is happening between the two countries. And that is the highlight from this conversation. Just tell us more.
Well, that's right. In fact, this is the first time Prime Minister Modi has spoken to President Trump after Operation Sindoor. In fact, as Foreign Secretary rightly pointed out, that the last conversation happened between the two leaders only after Pahalgam terror attack. And in fact, this is the first conversation to Prime Minister Modi, perhaps explained to President Trump the context under which India targeted terror camps in POJK and Pakistan. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also told President Trump and thanked him for extending support to India right after the Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, this is what Foreign Secretary said, that when Vice President Vance called Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor, and in fact Vice President Vance told Prime Minister Modi that Pakistan is planning a big attack on.
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5. We return with the top stories we're tracking this evening. As conflict in West Asia escalates, Ayatollah Khamenei warns Israel, says it has made a big mistake and will be punished for its actions, says Americans should know Iran will not surrender. The situation escalates further in Middle East as Israel warns of fresh strikes, targets Iran's nuclear program in a renewed attack. Prime Minister Modi lands in Croatia, the last stop in his three-nation tour. This will be the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the Balkan nation as the Prime Minister expands ties with EU and NATO nations. PM Modi sets the record straight with Donald Trump in a 35-minute conversation, rejects mediation bluff, chooses Croatia over United States by not changing his itinerary despite President Trump's invite. Big step towards hassle-free travel. FASTag announces annual pass for 3,000 rupees or up to 200 trips in a year. Karnataka government plan to extend the work day to 10 hours, splits industry bodies across the state. Karnataka Tech Employees Association says move violates fundamental rights, while the State Chamber of Commerce welcomes government move as a key driver of growth. And while the Enforcement Directorate, remember, carried out raids on Wednesday at 37 locations linked to private contractors in Delhi and NCR, the raids are part of an investigation into the alleged scam worth 2,000 crore rupees related to irregularities in construction of classroom. And in a CNN News 18 exclusive on the Delhi classroom scam under the Aam Aadmi Party, we've learnt of more ED case details. Let's break down the details on alleged large-scale financial irregularities and alleged corruption in the construction of additional classrooms in government schools from 2015 to 2023. The ED claims execution of projects has been done with inflated costs, procedural lapses and misuse of public funds. The cost of construction allegedly far exceeded standard government benchmarks, and that's where the Enforcement Directorate investigation comes into play. Going across to Anvit Srivastav, who joins us with more details. ED's been carrying out searches at 37 different locations across the national capital region. And with, let's not forget, there are two Aam Aadmi Party leaders who are accused in this investigation or in this case. Raids haven't taken place on any of the premises linked to them is what we're learning. But piece this together for us, the story that the Enforcement Directorate is investigating in the entire scam. We're not sure if Anvit is through, but these are exclusive inputs being shared by Manoj Gupta. Execution of these projects has been done with inflated costs, procedural lapses, misuse of public funds. All of this being looked at by the Enforcement Directorate despite the stated objective of improving public education facilities. The cost of construction allegedly far exceeded standard government benchmarks and has even been compared to the cost of constructing luxury establishments. Anvit joins us with more details. Anvit, as we keep up with the searches that had been ongoing on 37 locations in Delhi NCR, Tell us a little bit about the story. It goes back to two top AAP netas as well. The scam allegedly happened during the Aam Aadmi Party governance in the national capital. What is it in particular that the ED is looking through these fresh searches as per top ED sources?
In Enforcement Directorate today has audited multiple locations, and this is related to money laundering probe into the classroom construction scam that is alleged to have taken place during the previous Aam Aadmi Party government's tenure. The Enforcement Directorate had registered an FIR against Aam Aadmi Party's Delhi ministers Manish Sisodia and Satyendra Jain in this case. It was on April 30th that the FIR was registered, alleging financial irregularities up to an amount of 2,000 crores in construction of over 12,000 classrooms or semi-permanent structures in Delhi. Now, the Delhi classroom construction scam, the alleged scam, it pertains to a large-scale financial irregularity and alleged corruption in the construction of additional classrooms in government schools during the term of Aam Aadmi Party-led GNCT government from 2015 to 16 and then 2022 to 2023. Now, the scheme originally framed as initiative to upgrade educational infrastructure. It allegedly involved two major projects categorized as Priority 1 and Priority 2, a focus on better per-student classroom ratio in existing schools premises. However, the execution of these projects has been done with inflated costs, as alleged, and procedural lapses and misuse of public funds. However, despite the stated objective of improving public education facilities, the cost of construction allegedly far exceeded standard government benchmarks and has even been compared to the cost of conducting luxury establishments. The scam highlights also overestimation in project valuation, manipulation of tendering process, bypassing GFR, and also awarding work at inflated rates, reflecting systematic abuse of power. And this is the reason why, based on this FIR that the EB registered on April 30th, today the Directorate had conducted multiple raids, and this is further probe that is going on. The case initially was registered by Delhi's Anti-Corruption Bureau, and based on that, a PMLA case has been registered by the ED.
Okay, many thanks, Anvit, for getting us all those details. Stay on with us, though. We need your inputs on another bit of breaking news update that's coming. This is another CNN News 18 exclusive. We've accessed the status report of Air India from DGCA, which highlights the disruptions and checks that are underway in the wake of the Ahmedabad AI-171 crash. First up, nearly 83 scheduled flights have been cancelled since the 12th of June. 12th of June is when that horrible tragedy unfolded in Ahmedabad. Nearly 64 787 operated flights have been cancelled since then. Also, Air India's 787 fleet has a total of 33 aircrafts. 24 have completed mandated checks. Two other 787 planes are likely to complete the mandated checks shortly. Another additional 787 aircraft scheduled for inspection on the 19th of June, that is tomorrow. In addition to this, 4 aircrafts under MRO checks and set to be cleared before service. 2 aircrafts remain grounded in Delhi pending inspection. That's how the status of the ongoing checks is unfolding slowly. Air India crash update is also coming in from the DGCA. 184 samples, DNA samples, have already been matched. So there is a significant forward-looking update in terms of the kind of DNA sampling that has been ongoing by the team of 600 plus doctors engaged in this process. But as far as the Air India plane status is concerned, especially the 787 Boeing Dreamliners, these are the kind of security checks that have been ongoing the last few days alone. Anvit Srivastav continues to stay on with us. Anvit, how soon, if at all, will the 787 Dreamliners of Air India be made operational? And anything that you're learning in terms of what's been found out, because some of these also reported technical issues?
So the plans and surveillance conduct revealing any major safety concerns is what the DGCA said, and the aircraft and associated maintenance systems were found by DGCA to be compliant with existing safety standards. Other than that, when DGCA has also reviewed the recent operational data for Air India's wide-body operations, because 787 have been in the epicenter of controversy, the Boeing Dreamliners. If we talk about the data that DGCA has released over the past 6 days, starting June 12, when that unfortunate crash took place of AI-171, till yesterday, June 17th, DGCA has come out and said the total number of flights operated have been going down. On June 12th, when the day on which crash took place, there were 90 Dreamliner 787 Boeing fleet that was operational. After that, it became 80, 86, and then 76, 75, and 55. So yesterday, 55 aircrafts were operated. Before that, it was 75. If we talk about the total number of B787 Boeing Dreamliners that have been operated, that also has gone down in the past 6 days from 50 operational Boeing 787 Dreamliners to 30 yesterday. Only 30 were operational yesterday. And there have, like you mentioned, technical glitch. There have been multiple technical glitch, but following that, DGC has also taken a note of these, and it had guided the airlines to not to cancel some flights which have detected technical glitch. Following that, on June 12th, while only 5 flights were cancelled, taking precautionary measures, yesterday 13 flights had to be cancelled, and before that 11, and before that 14 flights were cancelled. These are all because, the multiple technical glitch have been reported by not just Boeing 787, but also by other flights, other aircrafts and other airlines as well. But technical snag or glitch is usually an umbrella term that airlines use. This may mean systematic malfunction into systems like the engine, hydraulics, electrical issues, fuel-related issues, or flight control system. It may also mean sensor-related issues or issues with instruments in cockpit. Technical snags are common occurrence. However, after Dreamliner, aircraft operators are more cautious, and even the slightest of glitch and such, are being addressed with seriousness. This is also we are seeing.
Okay, Anvit, many thanks for joining us with all those details. Security checks currently ongoing in several of those AI 787 Dreamliners across the country that were operational. We get into a quick break with that, but here's a quick reminder, viewers, announcing the launch of Money Control Super Pro. Get live trades by SEBI registered RAs, ready-made chart patterns as they form, and AI-generated stock alerts. Get your investment superpower today. Don't forget to subscribe already. We'll be right back.
Hey, careful, huh?
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Siddhant, that is the big statement that's coming in from the Foreign Secretary. Important aspects that have been underlined. Vikram Misri has gone on to put it on record that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did take up the US intervention as far as the conversation between India and Pakistan is concerned. He reiterated how India doesn't accept any third-party involvement when it is about their relationship between India and Pakistan and dealing with whatever is happening between the two countries. And that is the highlight from this conversation. Just tell us more.
Well, that's right. In fact, this is the first time Prime Minister Modi has spoken to President Trump after Operation Sindoor. In fact, as Foreign Secretary rightly pointed out, that the first conversation the last conversation happened between the two leaders only after Pahalgam terror attack. And in fact, this is the first conversation to Prime Minister Modi, perhaps explained to President Trump the context under which India targeted terror camps in POJK and Pakistan. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also told President Trump and thanked him for extending support to India right after the Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, this is what Foreign Secretary said, that when Vice President Vance called Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor, and in fact Vice President Vance told Prime Minister Modi that Pakistan is planning a big attack on India, to which Prime Minister Modi replied to Vice President Vance that if Pakistan will do a big attack, then we will also retaliate in a powerful way. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi explained this to President Trump, that then India gave a powerful reply to Pakistan on the intervening night of 9th and 10th of May. PM Modi told President Trump very clearly, in all this, never ever trade was discussed. PM Modi also told President Trump India had never accepted mediation. India will never accept mediation. In fact, President Trump understood Prime Minister Modi's viewpoint. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also extended invitation to President Trump to visit India for the Quad Summit later this year, which President Trump has accepted. In fact, President Trump invited Prime Minister Modi to visit United States. In fact, President Trump said this to Prime Minister Modi, that if he could come to United States for a brief visit so that both leaders can sit and talk before returning to India, to which Prime Minister Modi told President Trump that since he already has scheduled a program in Croatia, he is going to United States, but both leaders will definitely look for an opportunity to meet as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
So,
35 minutes conversation. One more thing that has been said by Vikram Misri and Sanjay, I'd like your inputs on this, that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was the one who in fact spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi post the Pahalgam attack. He mentioned of some sort of an imminent attack by Pakistan, to which Prime Minister Modi had very, very clearly said that India's response is going to be lethal. That also is rather significant, Sanjay.
Yes, a quick thought before we come to that. I think it's quite significant the very fact that this call was made, and we are not done with the G7 yet.
Yes.
There was to have been a bilateral between Trump and Modi. That was missed for circumstantial reasons. President Trump left. But before the G7 is done, the White House made it sure that there would be a conversation. Typically, conversations and meetings here at the G7 have been slotted 35 minutes, a lot of them. And this call we just heard from the Foreign Secretary was 35 minutes. So that keenness from the US, keenness from Trump, that yes, we must have this call with Modi. The second thing that's quite remarkable, although it's almost a throwaway remark that Trump appears to have made, is if Modi has not left Canada, which is next door to where the president is, if he can come to the US. Now that is quite an unusual expression of keenness and a quite unusual invitation that's very spontaneous. But I think it's quite telling. It all adds up to a great keenness to hear from Modi and to speak with him. So once that, of course, is established, then through the course of the call we do hear now about Vance. So there was an attempt at, call it mediation, call it an attempt to reach a ceasefire, call it an attempt to prevent escalation. That came from the Vice President and not from Trump himself. Is the team really at the top of the US government? But that does make things clear, because this area has been a bit clouded for a while now. Whether it is President Trump who intervened to end the hostilities, or whether it was directly done, we have a very clear statement now from the government that it was between Pakistan and India at the military level that this was agreed. Of course, with political backing, it was not President Trump himself, but it was the Vice President who intervened in some way, in some capacity, not exactly as thought.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Siddhant, that is the big statement that's coming in from the Foreign Secretary. Important aspects that have been underlined. Vikram Misri has gone on to put it on record that Prime Minister Narendra Modi did take up the US intervention as far as the conversation between India and Pakistan is concerned. He reiterated how India doesn't accept any third-party involvement when it is about their relationship between India and Pakistan and dealing with whatever is happening between the two countries. And that is the highlight from this conversation. Just tell us more.
Well, that's right. In fact, this is the first time Prime Minister Modi has spoken to President Trump after Operation Sindoor. In fact, as Foreign Secretary rightly pointed out, that the last conversation happened between the two leaders only after Pahalgam terror attack. And in fact, this is the first conversation to Prime Minister Modi, perhaps explained to President Trump the context under which India targeted terror camps in POJK and Pakistan. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also told President Trump and thanked him for extending support to India right after the Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, this is what Foreign Secretary said, that when Vice President Vance called Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor, and in fact Vice President Vance told Prime Minister Modi that Pakistan is planning a big attack on India, to which Prime Minister Modi replied to Vice President Vance that if Pakistan will do a big attack, then we will also retaliate in a powerful way. And in fact, Prime Minister Modi explained this to President Trump, that then India gave a powerful reply to Pakistan on the intervening night of 9th and 10th of May. PM Modi told President Trump very clearly, in all this, never ever trade was discussed. PM Modi also told President Trump, India had never accepted mediation, India will never accept mediation. In fact, President Trump understood Prime Minister Modi's viewpoint. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also extended invitation to President Trump to visit India for the Quad Summit later this year.
Welcome back. We return with some light-hearted news, or rather light-hearted conversations that were ongoing in Canada at the time of the G7. So these are two very interesting clips that have taken the internet by the storm. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni sharing this light-hearted moment that set social media on fire. We'll play out the audio of this in just a bit, but this is also something that's got the internet buzzing. Giorgia Meloni having this dramatic moment with French President Emmanuel Macron. You can see her rolling her eyes, and this particular instance when the French President whispers something to her ear and her rolling her eyes at him has gone viral on social media. It's taken the internet by storm. It is the talking point of the day, and there is so much that's coming off with netizens buzzing on what really this conversation could be all about, and how normally at these roundtable discussions top world leaders have a poker face. That's the kind of face they want to pull off, but that's not what happened with the Italian Prime Minister. We'll talk about that in just a bit, but here's the interaction that took place between Prime Minister Modi and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni.
Hi. How are you? Nice to you. I'm fine. I'm trying. As always, you're the best. I'm trying to be a few. You know it. Excuse me. Hi. How are you? Nice to you. I'm fine. I'm trying. As always, you're the best. I'm trying to be a few. You know it. Excuse me.
So you did hear the Italian Prime Minister there tell Prime Minister Narendra Modi that you know you're the best. She's also taken to social media to share a quick reaction on what she made of that interaction with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. She's highlighted their friendship on social media while talking about this very picture that you see on the right side of your screens. But that's the interesting bit. The left side of your screens is this particular video set that's gone viral on social media. It's got the internet buzzing. Giorgia Meloni rolling her eyes at Emmanuel Macron as he whispers something into her ear. And like I said, normally in these kind of conversations, a round table discussion that was taking place here, normally leaders try and pull off a poker face, but that's exactly what didn't happen here, is what's resulted in this kind of buzz doing the rounds on social media. That's all from me for now on Nation at 5. Over to Shivani Gupta for Plain Speak.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Ever since US President Donald Trump claimed credit for brokering a truce between India and Pakistan during the recent conflict, opposition in India has been seeking answers from the centre as to why India allegedly allowed this mediation. Of course, the government and the MEA have dismissed these claims multiple times, asserting that negotiations occurred solely through direct military channels between India and Pakistan and that trade was never really an issue. But that hasn't sufficed. Now, on the sidelines of the G7 summit, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump held a telephonic conversation in which Indian PM told the US President directly that once his deputy Vance called to alert India that Pakistan will be attacking them in retaliation, India had made it clear, bring it on. And it is after that May 10 strikes that incapacitated Pakistani defences that they asked for a ceasefire. Prime Minister also asserted that during this phone call with Vance, there was no discussion on trade. This has been said by the Indian government as a clear rebuff to US claims, but also, of course, to satisfy domestic demands. Will the opposition let it rest now? That remains to be seen. But what is also of great interest in India is in USA's recent mollycoddling of Pakistan with their Chief of Army Staff's visit to the White House, which brings us to the question that Indians have been asking again and again and again, just how much can India rely on the US of A? First up, let's break down the 35-minute phone call between Prime